How is it going? Good? Okay, perfect. The time flies like crazy. And now we've got like 3 p.m. We just saw each other in the morning. A couple of words regarding intro, because we've got only 45 minutes for a very exciting subject, which is discussing about malware and all the different techniques that we can use to bypass that. Yeah, so let's dig in. As you see on the slide, my name is Paula J. Whoever wasn't on the keynote, I have to introduce myself. So as you see, I'm the CEO of Secure, delivering penetration tests, and also having access to 99.999% of the source code in Windows, which obviously it means that the rest part is the most interesting one. And everybody is trying to get there, and we are not having it. But still, why do I say that? Well, because this is something that allows my team and myself to dig into various different types of areas in operating system where antivirus could search for information, and at the same time we could do something maybe to cheat on antivirus. So this is the flow. In general, the session subject is about bypassing anti-malware tactics. And the reason why this session was created is because we've been sitting together with our team one day, one of these days, and we are wondering, is it possible to invent an ultimate techniques that will cheat on every single antivirus out there so that we can run our tools and do not worry during the pen test that we're going to be cut off just because one of these antivirus solutions says something? And the answer is, of course there is, and this is something that we have figured. That's something that we're going to be talking about during the session. Okay, so let's dig in. Basically, from the speaking perspective, I was also mentioning that you can also see me on various places. At the end, what matters the most is that you are still here, and that means that you are interested in security, which is perfect. So hopefully there's going to be something interesting from my side to you this time too. So let's move on. In general, the idea is very simple. We have so many good solutions, security-wise, that are preventing us from the access from the outside, yeah? So external access. So let's say 20 years ago, everybody was investing in a fantastic firewalls. That was that momentum where everybody was buying those. But we kind of focus on that, but at the same time, we've forgotten that, of course, there's a lot of different types of situations that are inside. And we all know that we've got this percentage, 70% of an inside threat and so on. But why this is happening, why we're allowing that, that is something to be discussed during this session. Now, whenever we are thinking about different types of solutions, question is, and let's start actually with a demonstration before we actually get to any subject, can antivirus be stopped? Yeah. So we've got different types of antivirus solutions available, and in general they are divided into two parts. This is all about the service, this is all about the driver, so not a big deal really if we are an administrator, can we stop it? But I'm sure you notice that even though you are an administrator and you want to stop it, sometimes we've got access is denied message. And this message can be coming from two scenarios. One, because service was written not to be stoppable. And that's the first thing. So developers made it this way, and that's a good idea in general. Can I kill this process? Totally. But I cannot just politely stop it. And the second one is relying on permissions to the service. So in operating system, we've got something that is called SDDL, Security Definition Descriptive Language, as one of my colleagues described as a language of love, which I think this is very weird because it's nothing really related with love, but let me show you. Yeah? So whenever we are thinking, of course, about that Windows 10 thing that I want to show you with the antivirus, question is, well, how does it look like? So I'm gonna log on to my operating system right now. So I've got this one. I'm gonna log on to the same machine we've been using during the keynote. Bring it on. And what do I have over here is services console, and I've got two services I'm going to sort by description that are interesting and we're having a look at. One, it's called McAfee, and of course the relationship with the whatever antivirus producer is very mysterious and nobody will figure what we are talking about. So question is, can we stop it? And answer is totally yes. It doesn't matter what kind of version we are talking about. Yes, I'm taking McAfee as an example. But this is just an example of the services. Symantec, for example, has a different approach, and it doesn't mean it's better. It's just different. Yeah. Actually, none of those is better. Both of those can be stopped. That's my point. So either you use this or that. Both are stoppable. So this McAfee thing, when I'm a local administrator, even so, and I try to do that, I cannot because this is grayed out. Even though I'm going to elevate myself to a local system, I still cannot do that. And the question is why? So let's dig into the subject where we're going to be playing with stopping the antivirus. So I'm going to get into CQ tools, CLS, and then I'm going to do psexec sidcmd.exe. And this is in order to elevate to a local system. Bring it on. Yeah, so we've got this. Now question is, can I do net stop? Here we go, stop McAfee. Yep, and SVC access is denied. And what I'm always like thinking about this is, I mean, it's just a message the developer wanted to share with you. Is this a good message? Well, I'm not happy about that. So basically, I'm always taking an approach to anything like this, like my grandfather, and my grandfather is a very cool guy. And what he says is that whenever he pays for something, whenever he goes, in Poland we've got something that is called, we call it a Russian market, which means that we like have a trade on the street together, Polish and Russians, and we exchange goods, money. And you can buy a lot of different types of things, probably starting from the rocket fuel, ending up with something else. And eventually my grandfather loves to come there because he's like digging into all these things. And he bought himself like a little watch. And he paid like €1 for that. So he comes to his apartment and he takes a screwdriver, he opens it up, all the pieces, and he's like, thinking, and then he puts it all together and he's like, works, and he's so happy. Yeah, and the question is, why does he do that? And this was my question to him, and he's like, obviously, Paula, because I paid for it. It means I need to know how it works, right? I'm like, that kind of makes sense. So since we pay for our operating system, isn't it the same approach? Yeah, access is denied, doesn't exist, it's mine, come on. Like, it's mine. So basically, can we do that to stop it? Totally, yeah? So in order to stop it, we need to do sd show, and then we take into consideration our service, which is McAfee, and then we let's just do pj.txt, and pj.txt gets that as DDL. So purely it's a language of love, as you see. It's a very sad love, apparently. So let's move forward. So we've got over here word wrap, and then I've got a couple of things to mention. So first of all, and this is totally easy, yeah? So we've got a discretionary access control list, which defines as access to an object, as simple as it is, yeah? But probably some of you are playing with SDL. If not, then it's a fantastic opportunity to have a look at. Though for services, it's a little strange. So we've got D, that stands for deny. A U, it's an identity, which is going to be what? Authenticated users, very good. This is tricky, this is really tricky. Once again? Administrator. Okay, what kind of? Built-in. Thank you. Yeah, I've heard backup, and don't get me wrong, when I look at this, I always feel like it's a backup administrator. I don't know, it's just like here, but it's not, because we don't have such a thing. Okay, and this one is easy system, right? Thank you. So WP stands for right property. In a case of a service, it means stop the service. I know these things have nothing to do with each other. Who cares? You just need to learn this by heart. SD, standard delete, makes sense to delete the service. WD, write DAC, so that means changing permissions. And WO means write owner, which means pretty much the same for the service as for the file. So we can clearly say that for authenticated users and eventually system, this is D, yeah? So deny. So why don't we just change that? And the beautiful part of this is that system can always do that, yes? So this is something that we always need to take into consideration, because local system, of course, is a privileged account, but by design, it is added to several places in operating system that it has an access. Could this account be totally locked? Of course, yeah, you can do that by playing with different privileges, permissions, and so on. But by default, of course, this account has access to lots of different places. So what we're going to do, sd set, and then McAfee, and then technically we just paste and we give the string. And the question is, can we stop an antivirus? And answer is yes. Yeah. So this is the McAfee security. And well, of course, we are assuming at that point that if you are privileged enough to do that, you should be able to do this. Well, yes and no. For example, when I was mentioning the second type of protection, services can be also written in a way so that they are not accepting the stop function. So I got a service, it's called Stop Me If You Can, with the short name called Stop Me. And the question is, can I do that? Let's have a look. I will do this as a local system, yeah? So let's see, net stop me, and then it says the requested pause, continue, or stop, it's not available for that service. That's a little bit better. I can still kill it, though. What has changed and what is about to becoming more and more interesting is that since Windows Vista, Microsoft introduced something that is called protected process. And protected process in Windows 10 in Elm will start to have a little bit new meaning. Yes, so there is a protection beat in the process has its own structure that describes the process, and one of the beats so enables or disables one of the features. So that protected process means that you are not able to do anything to the process unless you are in a debug mode. Yeah? Let me give you an example. If you want to play with what I'm talking about, if you play the music in the Windows Media Player, there is a process that is created, it's called Audio DG. And Audio DG, if you want to kill it or perform the memory dump, it will say access is denied, because that process, for example, implements DRM, which nobody wants you to mingle with. Yeah, so that is one of the ideas of the protected process. It's not there that much yet. And if we do for that particular service SC query, and then stop me, then it says not stoppable, not pausable, accept shutdown. Oh, thanks God. I thought that I will never be able to shut down my operating system. Well, anyway, of course I'm kidding. You can do lots of things with this service. As I mentioned, you can kill it, terminate it, and that would be one of the ways to deal with it. Okay, so this is just a little bit of a warm-up. Let's dig in. So whenever we are thinking about malware discovery, so how malware solutions search for bad stuff, well, then, of course, there are two major things worth having a look. So one is the signature-based, because we know what is this file about, and another one is behavior-based. This is basics, yeah? Now, whenever we are thinking about signature-based, I'm kind of regretting that lots of antivirus solutions, they do not rely on something that is called IMP hash, import hash. So import hash, it is one thing that if we do analyze DLL or executable, and this DLL and executable needs several other DLLs to work, so this is a list of imports, for DLL list of exports would be the different types of functions that this particular DLL offers, so it's a different story. When I'm, as a developer, working on the software, I'm usually changing the content of the function, but I'm not changing the dependencies unless I'm introducing something new. Yeah, so my software uses that list of imports, and that's it. And I'm working on the exports. So whenever, for example, we want to implement, let's say, code execution prevention, we're like, oh, but in our own environment, that will not work out because we've got lots of developers and they're changing software. Well, yeah, if we rely on the IMP hash, so imports hash, then it's a different story. So this is a little bit of a new approach, and we've got behavior-based. Another thing that actually is right now on the market, it's something that is called a machine learning threat detection, or detection based on the correlation. That means that I don't know if this is good, or I don't know if this is bad, but if you touch this process, and if you create remote threat, and if you do open process to that process within the certain time period, that means it's bad, but we don't know what's that. But in general, that would probably mean credential theft. So this is something that is upcoming, and Windows Defender ATP, so not just the Defender, but Advanced Threat Protection, to which you have to subscribe to, has a possibility to recognize, for example, threats like that. Which is kind of surprising, because we are always like, Microsoft antivirus, but no. But within the current time, this is actually a pretty cool solution, which you can run additionally to the solution that you have right now, and it actually discovers lots of things that are not discovered by the regular antivirus. Now, funny thing is that behavioral-based approach, it sounds very ambitious, but it doesn't really have much ambition if we design the behavior. Technically, any teenager doing the Stack Overflow programming could pretty much write something that nobody has heard of, and then it's becoming a new malware tomorrow. Yeah, so this is something that we are reconsidering here. So when these people write malware, this is relying on a bunch of evasion techniques. So a little bit of a theory, and I'm going to mix it, of course, with a demo in a moment. So we've got things like wrappers, yes, and this is a technique from 90s. It's a little bit of an old school, but not so old at the end. For example, previously we were talking about executables in executables. What if we think, for example, about PowerShell scripts in a PowerShell scripts? That's a little bit new era of execution. Yeah. Whenever we are thinking about packers and encryptors, then it's another interesting technology to use. So what I'm going to show you is packer or encryptor, as we could say, which is called Hyperion. So this is one of the ones that I'm giving here as an example. Now, this subject is for us absolutely funny. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if I do have a packer or encryptor in general, this piece of code has one role. Take my executable and eventually encrypt it, and then implement the way known only to this tool how to decrypt this executable. So probably we're going to load this to the memory and then we're going to decrypt it over there. Maybe, yes, it depends on the technique implemented. The problem is that as long as these names are there, antivirus companies, they also know the ways how these solutions are actually wrapping your file. So where's the drill? The drill is nowhere. Who cares about this software if at the end, when we are playing with different types of antivirus solutions, they all know what this is all about, yeah? So what is my goal here is to show you basically how much that doesn't work, yeah? And then in a moment, we're gonna do something that works. So Hyperion, and this is the stuff to dig in. So what do I have over here? So this is Hyperion. It's a free software, as many of those. And our Hyperion works like this, that we can specify in-file and out-file, so absolutely easy approach. Now, we could do this a couple of times to the file. In general, question is what's going to be the result of the file? Will the file work or not? I can tell you that it's very hard to find out the ultimate fantastic encryptor, so the best way is really to write your own, but before we get there, let me show you how this thing works. So when we get our Hyperion, once again, I'm going to put the Mimikatz trunk over here, and then I'm going to use Win32-bit Mimikatz. Here we go. And then out file is going to be, let's say, Mimi, or Mimi, it's a very indicative name. Let's say flower.exe. Yeah. So flower.exe is going to be the Mimikatz 32-bit. So what I'm going to do at the end, I will actually use and leverage VirusTotal, because I would like to show you how eventually VirusTotal is capable of, I'm just going to copy this path, capable of recognizing the problem, yeah? And of course, it's not, yeah? So Hyperion being one of the most popular tools, it just doesn't work because everybody knows it, yeah? So I'm gonna, and I'm loading Flower. One more thing, because this is actually quite funny. My Defender immediately reacted to this, so I have to switch it off at the end. That's gonna take 15 seconds off, okay? So elevated good protection is off for now. So I'm going to use VirusTotal, yeah, and I'm loading the flower.exe. And of course, we are interested how well Hyperion works. The funny thing about Hyperion is that when I packed Mimikatz with Hyperion, it actually gives me more information, more red alerts than if I just upload the Mimikatz by itself. Oh yeah, so this is great, yeah? So this is exactly what we want. Fantastic tool from the functioning perspective. 42 out of 65. Yes, I wonder what's happening with the rest of these guys. Who is this? So, yeah, Trend Micro. Okay, the hacker. Oh, that's a great thing. I would love to use that. So, Trend Micro again. So, Trend Micro will not discover that. And I mean, sorry to put the names on, but that's kind of the reality, yes? So it's nice to know and nice to have our own tests to check what's going on. It's funny that Alibaba is having its own probes for the antivirus software, isn't it? Good, so let's move forward. Next thing that I would like to show you is how we are able to work on the Mimikatz, which is, of course, recognized by antivirus, but from a little bit different perspective. For example, for that, I'm going to use the reflective or reflective payloader or reflection technique. And the reflection technique makes the compiler to not to know really what's going to be loaded. So what we are doing, we are dynamically compiling software that we have within the memory, and we load the encrypted piece of code into the memory, and then we load just a piece of it so that the antivirus cannot even tell what's going on. And interesting case, this is the last comment on the slide, when we have compiled with the option for the 64 bits, we definitely and drastically had a limited amount of antivirus companies detecting our software. So let's move forward and let me show you how that particular technique works. It's actually quite interesting. So I'm going to move to the D drive, CQ tools, not this one, no, it's CLS, D, CQ, not CQ tools, but tools. Here we go, and CQ tools. CQ reflective payloader. This is our tool, and basically it allows us to work on mimikatz. So in this case, 64-bit. Let's just use the mimikatz.exe. Now you might be wondering, okay, how and if this tool actually works, yeah? So let's just have a look at the mimikatz if it works, yeah? So this is the, as you see, 90 something file that we have put on over here. Good, so I'm gonna take this file and I'm gonna load it again to VirusTotal, and we're gonna verify if this is working or not. So I'm gonna, on my side, do uploading of the files. This is the, let me just go to the D drive very quickly, and the path is tools, CQ tools, lovely. And here we go, and then we've got the 90 something, yes, so 90, here we go. This is the one. Yep, and let's move it on. Uploading 100%. This is our software, 90 whatever, and then we are verifying if, of course, this is getting discovered by antivirus. And as you see, 4 out of 40 says it's bad. I know that, oh, that's interesting. Asset is actually doing a pretty nice job over here. I know that Avast is here by accident because it doesn't appear very often. So by accident, they managed to say that this is bad. Okay, why not? And 7 out of 65 is actually saying that this is wrong, yeah? If you have any of those, things like node 32, then good for you. But is it possible to bypass this node? Totally, yeah? It's just a matter of spending more time on the solution that will recognize the patterns of node 32, and that's it, yeah? So what is my point over here is that within the antivirus techniques, we've got a very easy possibility to bypass that kind of solutions. Now, why does it work? Well, because, as we already mentioned, even though antivirus works on signature behavior and so ever, and whatever, nobody knows really what kind of behaviors these are. Therefore, how we are able to spot something like this, especially with the reflection technique when you are actually running things from the memory, not fully interpretable by antivirus. Okay, let's sum up. What else do we have? So, number 2. Different types of other evasion techniques. So obfuscation, of course, it's a changes of code. After compilation, it looks a little different. We're changing the name of the functions, different types of names of variables, and so on. A lot of, in general, the spaghetti code. It's kind of hard to analyze it, but at the same time, this is possible when we execute a certain piece of code. Now, whenever we are thinking about anti-debugging case, this is also quite interesting because anti-debugging sometimes delays different solutions. Yes, so we are spreading activities in time. We have a sleep function, so we run the software, and after over 60 seconds, which is a pretty much typical time for that kind of analysis, or let's say 5 minutes, we are then, this is the moment, executing the bad code. Now, there is also a technique that we can use that is related with the targeting. And the targeting means that if, of course, we are using VMware, or if we are using that type of a debugger, then we'll be able to bypass a certain piece of code. For example, AppLocker can be bypassed by launching or debugging code through code. So for example, if you've got a debugger installed, then there's a debugger software. You are able to run one software to another, which I will show you in a second. First, let's have a look at the targeting, but from the other perspective. So I am super proud to show you CoinVault. CoinVault, it's not maybe the newest one, but this is the ransomware that was actually, together with Kaspersky, defeated by Dutch government. I don't know if you know the story. And the Dutch government has found the servers where there were stored keys for the decryption, so as simple as it could be. And then later on with Kaspersky, they have provided the website for decryptor, with the decryptor. Yeah? That's why it's, I think, more like from here, so why don't we just dig into this? So over here, this is a second layer of CoinVault. So I managed to go through the different layers of CoinVault. I would say the second one is most interesting. Please have a look. This is the decompiled code. I'm using for that purpose software that is called ILSpy. Obviously, you could use IDA Pro, but ILSpy is good if you are more on the IT Pro side and you don't want to dig into the developers' world. But here we are able to see that do not run in general. That's the logic. If someone is running Wireshark, yes, or for example, if someone is running this particular ransomware in the virtual machine. So in the middle, you've got information that if on the network interface there is a Microsoft Corporation or VMware or VirtualBox, then basically do not run. Yeah. So these are the different types of evading techniques that we can use for analysis. And there is much, much more, of course, but this is within the subject something that I wanted to show you. So whenever we are thinking about some other stuff, the question is how eventually we are able to run different types of code. Let me show you that part. So this is, by the way, one of the ways how you are able to bypass AppLocker or any other code execution prevention. If you have your process and you start debugging it, and during the debugging process you load your own code, everything runs within the Notepad instance, for example. And that is also one of the ways to run it. Let's dig in. So that's going to be in a CCC. Yep, not that long folder, and it's going to be program files. It's going to be Windows kits. Let's go, no, Windows kits. No, the program files 60. Oh, this one, yeah, Windows, and then this is Windows kits. Lovely, and this is the 10. Great. So we've got over there a CDB. Let me just check one more thing. Oh yeah, debuggers and CDB. Yeah, here we go. Oh, where is it? Huh, that's strange. Maybe in bin. Let me just get there. CDB. No, where are my debuggers? Oh, that's... Yeah, thank you. This makes sense. See, you never learn this by heart. Let's see. Yeah, okay, here we go. Thank you, of course. So, yeah, CDB, thank you. And, of course, we're going to load the file, yes? So we've got a CF, and then we are able to load, for example, the definition for the calculator, yeah? So this is how I will be able to output notepad.exe. For example, I will be able to debug a certain software, and my software actually in Notepad loads character map, yes? So this is basically the definition of how do we run this, yes? Let me just close it and explain the situation, yes? So we've got this one, and we've got our character map, and let me just close this down, and then we're gonna be ready. Okay, perfect. So if we do Notepad, then we are able to see how does the definition of that look like, yeah? So, of course, this is the debug code, so this is actually the code of a car map that we are loading into the debugged process and to debug Notepad. So this is one of the ways of course, running the code. Okay, so if you will be interested more about the technique, I'm happy to share. But what I wanted to show you is actually the very realistic evasion scenario when we are able to, at that certain point, leverage malware being in the WMI repository. This is one of our favorite teams' way to play with it. The latest version of Sysmon has a possibility to discover the activity on the WMI repository, but only the activity, not if you launch the code from it. So what we're going to do in this scenario, it's going to be kind of like under scene, is that we will, through vulnerability, upload into the WMI repository a piece of code, and then we're going to be compiling from the WMI that piece of code. Kind of a really nasty approach, because who really checks what is in your WMI repository? So the attack is going to look like this. We do, from the victim, Firefox get because it's a vulnerability in Firefox. Then we're going to get a payload, because the problem is that if you enter a certain website, a certain setup prepared, then that is automatically exploited. Yeah? So it could be part of some kind of a dodgy website, same story, and if your user enters it, that's done. Yeah, so this is enough to move forward. And then we're going to connect through various ports. We're going to connect through 8888. Then we're going to get the remote session. We're going to download files. We could do it in various ways. We can compile and build in place our own downloader using CSC, for example, or we can use the PowerShell encoded command if this is possible in order to download it, that set of data. So later on, we're going to establish the session, schedule task, and by using the vulnerability, we're going to elevate from the regular user to the local system. Then we're going to connect back, infect WMI, and then we're going to connect back and provide another session which is running as a local system. Yeah, so this is the flow. I know it sounds a little bit complex. This is the attack scenario, kind of a pattern, so to say, where we want to elevate at the same time and update the WMI repository. So if it's about the techniques used, of course, I'm using the bug 16032, and at the end, I'm injecting the script into the WMI repository. Let's dig in. So what's going to happen? I've got, of course, my Windows 10, and I got as well setup Metasploit, which is pretty much configured. In order to not to waste time, I have decided to pre-configure it before the session. So this is our Metasploit. Why not? In a session I was running it in Linux, this time we can run it in Windows. This is our custom Steam's Metasploit. And over here I'm setting the Firefox PDF.js privilege escalation exploit, where basically it will be just enough that user enters a browser, enters a website, and then we've got the connection made. Now, in order to receive this connection, I will need to set up over here listeners. So we've got CQCAT. And then again, you might be overloaded with amount of tools from our team that I'm using, because I'm all the time using our custom tools. Because, I mean, if you really want something nice and I cannot find it, it's pretty much the decision that we've got. We've got a very nice developer. We have our thinking session, and we're like, why should we use the netcat if it doesn't support the functions that I want to? Why don't we just create our own netcat? And if you go to our blog, all these tools that I'm using today, they are all free and they are downloadable. So please go ahead, don't hesitate. Yeah, CQCAT -listen on the -port, and we're going to listen on 666. So this is one of the ports, and we're going to perform a couple of other activities over here. So we're going to hear listen. So the same story. So CQCAT, according to scenario, we should listen on the port 777. Lovely. And the another one over here, we should listen on the port, surprise, surprise, 888, yeah? So -L port 888. Good, 888, perfect, okay. So this is the flow. Now, in the exploit area, the only thing that I'm supposed to do is to do run, but please don't run away, we are moving forward. Let's get into the Windows 10. And within the Windows 10, I am here eventually logged as Freddy Krueger. As we have already been testing, I got some consoles here running as an administrator because I authenticated, but Freddy itself, he's just a regular user, yes? So I'm working as a regular user over here. And when there is on the other side server started, why don't we, for example, at that certain moment, perform some entrance to the website. Now, we could be wondering why someone's supposed to enter the website like that. Well, we could perform internally DNS spoofing and different types of attacks for that purpose, or we can just have a website running somewhere in the internet, which is well placed if it's about searchability. And at the end, people entering this website will be managing to gather those sessions. So 10, 10, 10, 100. Let's simplify. So this is basically the flow, yeah? If I click inside that, so let me just move it to my side so that we are able to observe what's happening over here. Yeah, so I will click inside. And when I do that, then basically we have here a one session opened, yeah? So this is the flow. And that's the simple moment, yeah? We are able to do sessions, and then sessions -L listing. Yeah, so as we see, we've got a one session. sessions minus interact one. I want to interact with this session. Yeah. So this is the case. Now, question is, are we there or not yet? Okay, as you see, I'm able to be Freddy, so in the context of the user. Now we can start encrypting data and go away. If we want to evaluate, we need to struggle a little bit harder. So again, how would I upload the code at that stage? A simple thing, PowerShell encoded command, as I already mentioned, encoded in base 64. Now, what's wrong with the PowerShell encoded command base 64? Nothing. Will antivirus say a thing? Not at all. Windows Defender ATP, and I'm not defending it, it's just a solution that allows you for discovery like this, allows you to tell you that, hey, someone was running PowerShell base 64 encoded command on your server. Maybe this is nothing bad, but it kind of stinks, because nobody normal runs encoded command in general, yeah? Unless you want to make the whole command to be not prone to any other special characters and errors and so on. So I would normally use over here PowerShell encoded command, and also there's one more benefit on the top of that. PowerShell encoded command runs once, so it does not leave you the context of the PowerShell. It's just like blink, and then the stuff is executing. Great. So next thing is to run this code, and for the purpose of that session, I have already downloaded the code. So I already have this code over there. I can, of course, show you how I did it. So over here, please have a look. I did it this way. Invoke web request, yeah, URI, HTTP, and I've got session 1, for example, out file session 1, PowerShell. So, and this is how I grabbed the code from the server. And then system convert to base 64 string. The clearest way, of course, of running this. And in the bottom you have the way how I executed that. Yeah, so the simplest way we could have. Okay, good. So when we are there, good, we can get into the next subject. Yeah. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna do C, and then temp cqcat.exe. Tab doesn't work, so I have to type the whole thing. And then we're gonna connect back into 10 10 10 100 on the port 888. -e and execute cmd.exe, yes? Because this session, I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's not very convenient, yes? So we can do that. Now, we could see that something was blinking here, which means that over here we've got already this session available, and that will be the moment, of course, when I will download the string, yes? So the PowerShell encoded command we could run in order to download the script, yeah? So at that certain stage, I could even run the stuff that is in a base 64, here we go, txt, in order to fetch the file. So let me just do that, so that we've got the sense of that we are actually downloading something at the end. So let's bring it on, and then PowerShell encoded command, and then we paste the stuff, and then this is how we download things, yes? So where are we gonna download things? So let's just do this in a moment. We have actually brought this up into ctemp, yes, because this was the folder that was out there, yeah? So we're gonna run that ctemp as a scheduled task, and that is an exploit in the PowerShell, which will give me the further access to the workstation. So over here, this is how we downloaded this. Let's move forward, cd temp, and dir, and we've got our session 1. This is basically what has been downloaded right now. So the next stage is to grab the PowerShell script and to execute it. How are we going to run this in the simplest way? Well, by probably using the scheduled task, but in order to do that, I need to check what's the time. Time/t, and then we've got 6:38 a.m., which is great. Over here, I have already a command prepared, so I'm creating the scheduled task. So sh tasks, create sc1s, and then we've got a test 1, session 1, PowerShell, and so on. But I'm going to change the time. I'm going to execute it at 06, and let's see, maybe 40, yeah, because that will be very reasonable. In the worst case, we can trigger it. Yeah, so we are ready to create that kind of task. So we've got that successfully created. Please have a look. I was using the technique on the keynote, PowerShell no profile. Yeah, that is one of the ways of bypassing the execution policy if there is something like that that exists. So we can also do scheduled tasks, and then we can specify run, and then we can specify task name, test1, yes, in order to push it. It should run at the time. It's like a Microsoft Minutes thing, so we kind of don't know if it's going to be on time. Okay, so this is a little bit better. Now, what is interesting over here is that we are anti-authority system as one of the vulnerabilities here. Yeah, so of course it doesn't have to be this way. Yeah, that's just one of the ways of executing the code and bypassing the techniques that are related with the antivirus. Because running PowerShell is nothing bad. Yeah, updating the WMI repository, nothing bad. Compiling the bad code directly from the WMI repository, nothing bad. Which is quite interesting because this is one of the maybe not super typical ways of running malware, but one of the ways. Okay, so we are almost done. Yeah, so at that certain moment, we could still download the code. Yes, and let's upload the stuff that I've got within the repository. So the WMI case. This is our authored malware. Let me go to the WMI folder. That's WMI. There. Yep. And over here, we're going to be running the active script EC. And I'm happy to share the script if you want. Because active script inject, sorry, because this is our authored technique of executing the code directly from the WMI repository. So how we're going to run this, as simple as it could be, since we're in a WMI, we're going to specify, of course, this particular script, paste, and we're going to do type, and then we're going to specify the technique again, same one, PowerShell, and bypass execution policy, no profile dash, yeah, and then basically we are loading stuff for the to the WMI, yeah. Now, of course, now here it's really WMI minutes. It might take a little bit of time, maybe. Compile should be, according to our script, happening every 1 minute, yes. But let's see what we're gonna get out of that. In the meantime, what we can do while waiting for this, we can go to the client and verify, of course, if there is some kind of a traffic that was happening and what kind of connections do we have happening. And as you see, that actually happened. Of course, here we are still system, but now wherever we're going to be from, this connection here is going to happen every minute. Yeah, so this is how we are able to achieve persistency for ourselves in the matter of WMI. Now let's have a look at the client, because that's the most interesting part. Here we go. So this is our client. Yeah, there is a Windows PowerShell window opened. Yeah, so basically, this is one of the runs that we were performing over here. We can hide this window by using the show window hide or show function in Windows. Now, what is interesting for us over here, it's to find out what kind of symptoms we have that something was actually happening here. So CLS, and I think because the connections were happening, can we do NSLOOKUP, not NSLOOKUP, but netstat minus A and B more, and let's find out what we got. Yeah, so there is not much. Yeah, these are the connections that are established. Yeah, so we've got, this is from the previous attack. Here we've got the Firefox. Here you've got the CQCAT and the CQCAT happening on these particular ports. So this is one of the ways to find it. If I disconnect, obviously this will be gone, but malware will still go. But we've got a port 666 happening over here, so we can check, of course, what this is about. Yeah, so can we, for example, in general, find out 666 port communication? And answer is absolutely. But is there any proactive monitoring in Windows? Well, there isn't, but we can get into event log. And last time on the precon, not on the precon, but on the precon as well, I was showing on the keynote the sysmon. So if we go administrator, password, okay, so event log, let's have a look if there is something we can spot. Of course, all these attack preparation steps will be there, but eventually there is one process that if you're going to see, there is something to worry about, yes? So we can go to Microsoft Windows, let me show you everything, sysmon, operational log, and eventually we can find, yeah, 666 as one of the connections. Yes. So no, this is not the one. What we are interested is the network connection access. Yeah. So maybe we should also filter across the different types of network events in order to be able to find it. Yes. So depends on what we actually monitor. Yes. If we do monitor network events, then that's going to be found. If not, then basically question is what else can we see over here? And what I'll be interested in, it's another process, which let's just do cons. Yeah, exactly. And this, when it executes, so in this case it's actually terminated because every single time I'm compiling something, then I've got this process, scrc cons. scrc cons. Who have seen this process before? What is this? This is actually a compiler that we use within the WMI. So if you do have a text code in the repository, if you put it in an appropriate place, then this guy will compile it and will execute it. Yes, this is the beauty of WMI. If you ever monitor or do the process tracking, this is something that we should definitely check on. Yes. Now we can search more for that process because it's a pretty interesting concept. So we can do scrc cons and find next. No, one more C or less. Okay, let me just do find. Yeah, and we've got src cons. Here we go. Yeah, and this is the process create, and we're able to see like who eventually was creating this process. So I can just dig into this. Yeah, and over here, for example, cmd.exe task kill. Okay, so this is where the pattern was, but it's not really about that process. So we can go next and find out more information. Yeah, so this is conhost, and conhost was actually a child process of that process. So eventually we will be able, oh, this is awesome. Please have a look. This is exactly what I wanted to show you at the end. We will be able to find out what kind of stuff scr cons is running. Yes. So let me show you first that, and the confirmation that this guy is a parent. So we can see that over here. Yeah. So this is this guy being a parent. Now it runs the child, which is the cmd.exe. Yeah, where we are actually compiling, so we are using CSC, yeah, the stuff that we've got from the certain code. So this debug CS that we are running over here is the one that is this piece of code that we are fetching from, thanks to the previous process from the WMI. And the question is, what kind of antivirus spotted that? And according to our knowledge, none of the ones that we've been reviewing on the virus total list are actually capable to do that. Yeah. So in general, what is the lesson out of my session today is that antivirus is totally passé. That's the first thing. What we need to start implementing and start looking at is are all the different types of solutions where, let me just run this, all the different solutions where we are able to control different types of code execution and eventually monitor and be informed about all these different vulnerable types of processes when they run. So things like CSC, things like different types of debuggers. So it depends. Things like C-script, maybe even things like PowerShell, and at the same time things like src cons. And this is the more or less a set of things that we should definitely look at. Additionally, please have a look at Sysmon. Sysmon is free. Sysmon will be able to only monitor and listen to, according to the rules or the file configuration that you're going to configure, the different types of processes that you put in a filter. So Sysmon doesn't have to monitor all the processes in Windows. Only the ones that are vulnerable or sensitive to you, you can configure the rule that will only collect information about those. And then you subscribe to this log, and then on the other server, on your workstation, you got information where this kind of processes were running and why, and this is how you will be able to review this, yes? If you are not, for example, blocking those. Okay, so this is basically the flow when we've got regarding the presentation. I really hope that you're gonna have some kind of a questions, because the subject is totally not easy. And at the end, hopefully you are staying for the party, and we're gonna have fun. And hopefully you like the conference, and that you're gonna be attending the next one. Hopefully you're gonna see me again, and I'm gonna see you again. Let's see. If you are interested in more information, we've got also some online content. So this is like an online training. And one more very last thing. if you go to secureacademy/quiz, since end of September, we have started a new edition. We've got 25 questions, and average of answers is 13. We're very disappointed, so hopefully after this session you're going to increase the average. We're looking forward to this. This is free, no registration. It's pure learning tool for fun. Thank you so much, guys, and have a nice rest of your day. Thank you.